When Ella invited me to her friend's wedding, I didn't think twice before saying yes. We had been together for over a year, and even though things between us had recently felt a little distant, I believed this trip would bring us closer. She said she wanted me to meet her old college friends, people who had been a big part of her past. I took it as a good sign, a chance to feel included in her world. We flew out early that Saturday morning. The drive from the airport to the countryside venue was peaceful, filled with sunlight and soft music. Ella seemed distracted though. She kept checking her phone, replying to messages with short smiles and unreadable expressions. I asked if she was okay, and she said she was just tired from work. I believed her. When we arrived, the garden was full of people laughing and hugging. Everyone seemed to know Ella. She was radiant, confident, slipping back into her old circle like she had never left. I watched her greet people, laughing and sharing stories, while I stood beside her, happy just to see her happy. Eventually, one of her friends approached us. "Ella, you made it," the woman said, giving her a big hug. Then she turned to me and asked, "And who's this?" It was a simple question, one that needed no thought, or so I believed. But Ella hesitated for a second, then laughed lightly and said, "Oh, he's just a friend." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. The word friend hung in the air like a heavy note. Her friend nodded politely and moved on, but I stood frozen, trying to understand what had just happened. I looked at Ella, who avoided my eyes, and said, "It's just easier that way. I don't want to make things awkward tonight." I nodded slowly, but inside, something quietly shifted. I smiled, but it wasn't the same smile as before. The rest of the evening went by in a blur. I helped with photos, talked to strangers, and kept my distance. She laughed with her friends, unaware of how her words had changed something inside me. Later that night, as everyone gathered near the dance floor, one of her old classmates came over and asked me if I was Ella's ex. I chuckled and said, "No, not yet, anyway." He laughed awkwardly, and I realized that maybe humor was my way of hiding the sting. As the night went on, I found myself talking to a group of guests who had no connection to Ella at all. We shared stories, laughed, and enjoyed the evening for what it was. And for the first time in months, I felt light, not because of the company, but because I realized how much of myself I had been shrinking just to fit into her comfort. When it was time for the final toast, Ella came up to me, her cheeks flushed from wine and laughter. "You've been quiet tonight," she said. "Everything okay?" I smiled at her, a calm, steady smile, and replied, "I'm fine. Just watching how easily you fit in here." She smiled back, not realizing the double meaning in my words. A few minutes later, as guests began leaving, she introduced me to another group, this time with the same words, "This is my friend." I gently interrupted, my tone soft but clear. "Actually," I said, smiling warmly, "just an ex, remember that." Her face froze for a second. The people around us went silent, unsure whether to laugh or look away. I didn't say it to humiliate her, only to remind her, and maybe myself, of the truth she'd tried to bury under convenience. I excused myself politely and stepped outside into the cool night air. I stood under the string lights, listening to the distant music. The air smelled of flowers and rain. I realized that night that love doesn't die in one big argument or heartbreak. Sometimes, it ends quietly, in the small ways someone stops claiming you when it matters most. A few days later, we met to talk. She tried to explain that she didn't mean to disrespect me, that she just didn't want people asking questions about our relationship. I listened, but deep down, I knew it wasn't about the crowd or the questions. It was about her needing me privately but hesitating to stand by me publicly. We decided to part ways on calm terms. No shouting, no bitterness, just honesty. She said she was sorry. I told her she didn't need to be. Sometimes people outgrow the courage to love openly, and that's not something you can teach them. Months passed, and I moved on with quiet peace. I learned to enjoy my own company, to take pride in how much I could feel deeply without letting it turn into resentment. Every so often, I'd think of that wedding night, not with anger, but with gratitude. That moment taught me self-respect in a way no words ever could. Now, whenever someone asks me about my past, I smile and say, I've had people call me many things, friend, partner, mistake, but each taught me something important. And truthfully, that's all love ever really is. Not a promise of forever, but a lesson in how much you're willing to value yourself when someone else forgets to.